Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me today is a man who is coming back from what we thought was the dead, but it is Ron here with his bald head and everything joining us today.
I was like, where is he going with that? And then I remembered, yeah, I do have a bald head. I won't even show you guys. I don't want to scare anybody. I do have a bald head under here, though. I'm doing good, man. We got another fun week of this show as we kind of continue this year of the mutants that I can't even say I have. I'm sure many people have said it before I have already. But that kind of feels like the vibe of this whole year with the comics and this show and Deadpool coming out. It's a fun time to be an X-Men fan. So glad to be here with you as always.
Yeah, my computer is struggling real hard right now. Hold on.
I can tell you're a
All right,
little choppy on me.
there we go.
You good? You're
Hopefully
good.
that clears it up.
You're good.
Yeah, talking some X-Men 97, episode 6, Life Death Part 2. But before we get to that, I just wanted to take a moment and thank anybody that listened to last week's episode because that was our highest ever listened to episode. It beat out the No Way Home episodes, which I didn't think were going to get topped until maybe the next Avengers film.
By like a lot too. Not to
Yeah.
poo poo those episodes, but it just our best episode by far since long before you've been doing this since end of 2020. I've just kind
Yeah.
of just recently jumped on the boat, so it's got to feel extra gratifying for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I hope they continue to follow along and continue to join us each week as we build to the finale of X-Men 97. But that's not all we'll be talking about, of course. We have great content coming up like our Deadpool and Wolverine review that will be coming out around the time of the film. We have monthly Ultimate Spider-Man comic discussions. We're going to be having X-Men comic discussions when that relaunches and just much much more as we get to, Agatha at the end of the year and all that great stuff. So
Hmm.
just want to take a moment to thank everybody for joining us on this. I don't expect this episode to be as highly listened to because it definitely was an episode last week that I felt like people were just having to seek it out. They're like, "Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
Let me hear people talk about this,"
Hmm.
and that was a huge bump for us. Um, it's why I try to get these episodes turned around so fast when we record these because I know people are hungry for it. But I think it also just shows, Ron, before we dive into the episode, how big this show has gotten, right? Like this isn't I mean, like I said, this beat No Way Home episodes. Now, of course, I'm a smaller podcast, right? We're a smaller podcast. But I think just seeing even tweets I put up about X-Men 97, the episodes we've been putting up of X-Men 97, there's a real interest here. And I think that is huge for the mutants in the MCU coming in.
Yeah, it's sort of like a mini like litmus test that we have here in our show and all these other shows that I'm sure the same thing. It's like you can kind of gauge what's popular and what's not based on your viewership. And again, to your point, the way that this one, especially last episode, just totally it took was our best one yet is really just indicative of how great this show has been. It feels a lot like and obviously things were a lot different in the 90s, but this cartoon was so popular then, and when you were a kid, it was all anybody was talking about, and it feels like it's got that vibe again, and it's so much tougher now to capture that vibe in whether we're talking movies or television, just because there's so much stuff out there. Like to truly find something that's great and that everybody's on board for and loves is so rare, and the way that this show is like recapturing that again, that sort of essence of the 90s where everyone's in on it and everyone loves the X-Men, like all us mutant fans who sat through the Age of Apocalypse era and all that stuff, like this is just feels very good and it's very vindicating.
I mean, yeah, even like Mina Kimes was talking about
Yeah.
this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, just people that generally you don't see really talking about this kind of stuff are talking about it.
it's
I
it's
don't,
it's it's not just a superhero product. It's evolved into like that Avengers Spider-Man level of it's
yes,
like a pop culture thing.
it really was like the like sleeping giant, right? The
Yep.
X Men.
Yep.
And to
Very
think
much.
that like Perlmutter was trying to like totally disregard the X-Men in comics even just because he didn't own the film rights is diabolical, and I can't believe that he was the one behind Nelson Peltz and everything.
I was
Luckily,
gonna say, thank God he's not back.
thank God that they worked it. But what I was gonna say is like just looking at this year, some of our biggest episodes have been X-Men related. Deadpool and Wolverine.
Mhm,
Our trailer discussion, I believe it was, had a pretty
mhm,
decent listenership and viewing, but
yep.
also the Fantastic Four casting, and then us talking about the
The
X-Men
the
'97.
trailer, right? Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that one was pretty decent, and then Ultimate Spider-Man started off pretty hot. I figured that one would start out with people wanting to know what it's like before diving in, and it's kind of tapered off a little bit
Mhm.
on those monthlies. I'm sure people have fallen behind on that too, but
And
you know,
just the comic audience is so much smaller than
yeah,
the
yeah,
visual
people
medium.
run out and get those number ones, and then
Yeah.
they start dropping off a bit.
Yep.
But yeah, so we've had a pretty good year so far, and I'll just say I'm very excited for what's to come. I think the next 4 episodes are going to be absolutely incredible. Not
Oh
that
yeah.
I know much about them, but I would think next week is setting up the finale. We know that they
Mhm,
go and they discover something. We read the synopsis
mhm.
last week. We'll read it again before we head out, just so that way we're clear again. But I mean, I think this is all good stuff. So, like we said, we're talking Life Death Part 2, written by Charley Feldman, directed by Chase Conley. And the synopsis was Storm is forced to face her worst fears in order to free herself. And it aired April 17th, 2024 on Disney Plus. Before we dive in, I did just want to mention here's the characters from the intro. I think
Mm. Yep.
I wanted to bring these up. We get Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Morph, Rogue, Beast, Jubilee, and we get Nightcrawler's first entrance into the theme song.
Yes, we did, and we also got no Gambit and Magneto for obvious reasons.
Yes. And
Yes.
still no Storm, even though she's in this. She just doesn't have
Yeah.
powers yet.
Yeah,
So
because she technically isn't still, she's got to make her way back to the team. Next,
yeah,
she'll 1000% be in the next one
yeah.
in her new black
Well,
suit,
that's what I
looking
was gonna ask. You
so
think they'll
cool.
have a new intro with her with the black suit on the intro?
Without question, without question. Probably from the first, like when you see her fly in the opening like thing, she'll probably be wearing that suit.
I could see them keeping her in the white in the like flying by the jet, but when it does her
Mhm.
name, I could
Yeah, yeah,
see
yeah,
her
yeah, yeah.
having the black.
That's true. Yeah, they'll probably keep the opening little section there the same. I might have been getting a little ahead of myself. We also though we did see in this trailer who we haven't seen uh, or caught a whiff of at all this season. Nimrod in there. He was sort
Yeah.
of in the center of one of the bigger Sentinels. We know, of course, Nimrod is an advanced Sentinel from the future because we know how much X Men loves doing that.
Yeah.
Days of Future Past storyline, so it stands to be reasoned that he will probably play a big part in, I'd guess, the last 3 episodes when Ish really starts to hit the fan, and these massive wars start happening. Obviously, we saw at the end of this episode, not to jump too far ahead, that it appears Sinister is kind of behind it all.
Hmm.
But he also, we see him sort of corner Bolivar Trask, and basically it seems in sort of a like my work's not done with you yet kind of thing. You know what I mean? So something tells me that that's going to end up being how we end up seeing Nimrod in this series. We're going to get all
Hmm.
kinds of cable-y, bishopy goodness of that future, going to the future and all that stuff. Kind of like an amalgamation of Days of Future Past with some original stuff and probably some other comic nods that we haven't even considered yet.
Yeah, I think I would hope Bishop comes back. We haven't seen him since he sent Nathan in the future. We knew Cable was supposed to play a big role. I'm assuming that's going to be more in those final 3 episodes, unless if I totally misread Bo DeMeo's whole point. But it seemed like in an interview he was saying like this dynamic of the father and the son will come around, and we've really seen just Cable briefly. We saw more the baby Cable than we saw
Mhm.
regular Cable. We also got clips with Forge and the Shi'ar Empire in the opening, which were references to like their first appearances in the animated series, and of course referencing that we're about to see them. Lalandra with Charles we saw as well from like their first time kind of falling in love in the animated series, and that should have been a hint. That should have been a hint. I did not pick up on that hint. I was still thinking this is majorly going to be a Storm episode, and this is kind of what I thought Motendo and Life Death Part 1 would be, where they kind of flash between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe they thought that'd be too jarring with what Motendo was, a very fun, light Jubilee episode. So I think that that's why they split it into the two. And this episode, both characters are kind of going through the same thing. And we
Mm-hmm.
kind of arrive at the same point at the end where they both figure out that something has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget, I saw some people say, I forgot this took place in the 90s. And they're like, you would be getting alerts on your phone that this happened. And it's like, no, in the 97, they were still had to turn on the TV and see the news.
Oh my God, Gene just tweeted the X-Men are under attack.
He tweets out to me, my X-Men, and puts his location tag on there.
Oh my God, yes. But yeah, no. Oh no,
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, so that should have been a hint. And apparently, this is the clip they released too, the whole Ronin thing. I'm glad I stayed away from it, because I was totally shocked by seeing Ronin the Accuser. We're seeing the Kree versus the Shi'ar. You get like Deathbird, Gladiator, who's pretty cool.
So happy to see him, dude.
Vulcan, which is
another
of course
Summers that we have not acknowledged is actually a Summers.
We were talking about it off air before this, but yes, another Summers. There's too many Summers running around, I think, at this point. But yeah, so that's where we start. We started off seeing Charles. He's walking. He's got like these like leg brace type thing on that's letting him walk, and he is fully healed now, right? Like he is back to normal over the course of the year.
Minus, I mean, he's like the only reason he can walk is because of he's not fully.
Yeah. No, I meant like back to where he was
Charles.
at the end of 96.
Exactly.
Not
not full on. Yeah, and I will say I'm glad that there wasn't too much of that. Oh my God, they're making Charles walk, because I do understand that sort of side of things, but in this, it wasn't like they were just totally neglecting his, like, I don't even want to call it a disability, but you know what I'm trying to say. His inability to use his legs. It's something that they were using in the sense of the story as opposed to just ignoring. And it's not something that's just going to go away. Like when he comes back in that next episode, he's going to be in his chair again. So I'm glad that the episode didn't get overshadowed with that kind of, the outrage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just to speak on that a little bit, it always drives me nuts when they have Charles walk. Not so much in this show, because I was like, whatever. But like in the Krakoa stuff, right, where he is walking and standing, and he looks like slim, fit. I don't know.
The all black like spandex suit with the Cerebro head.
Yeah. I mean, the Cerebro part is pretty cool, but the rest of it, I'm like, what makes Charles so awesome is the fact that he is a person with a disability, but he is also one of the strongest people in the world, and it's like it just shows almost like mind over matter, exactly right. Like that is what makes him so special. So anytime they kind of mess with that, it's like, one, I feel like they're taking representation away from people that probably really appreciate Charles in that sense, but also it's like he doesn't need that. He just needs his mind. So
yeah, no, I agree completely, very much. That was exactly what I was thinking of. The comic cover. Oh man! All right,
that's staying in. That's staying in.
Oh yeah, keep it in. That comic cover of like him and Jean, and I think Cyclops is in there. Like that was exactly what I pictured when I said
X-Men 1, right? Or is
yes.
it House of
I think it was
Powers
the
of X,
first.
House of X?
Yes, it was the first one of the first in that House and Powers. Um, but yeah, that's what I was thinking of when I said like there's times where that gripe is very much legitimate, but in this case,
Mhm.
I don't think it was so big of a deal. And again, who am I? I'm somebody who's never had to go through anything like that. So who the hell am I to say whether how somebody feels about it? But I'm glad that it doesn't seem to have bothered people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Given that it was more of an in service of the story thing as opposed to just we're gonna make Charles walk because we don't want him in his chair anymore.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, that whole opening little thing there was awesome. I was kind of hoping we were gonna get Captain Marvel there at some point. It felt like that would be a really cool spot for her to cameo. We
House
are
of X, by the way.
Was it
That's the
House of
one.
X? Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, it would have been really, really cool to see her cameo there. But all of the ones that we got were awesome. Like I said, I was really excited to see Gladiator. He did his little like wind breath thing. It just kind of got all the hits.
He's got a
Um,
great design.
oh, he's awesome.
Like, I'm somebody not super familiar with him, but he's one of those characters, like a Star Wars background character that you're like, yes. I don't know who
Yeah,
that is, but I love him. He looks awesome. Like
yeah,
that's me in the Crimson Corsair from the background of Force Awakens. He has got the
yeah.
red outfit and everything. I'm like, yes, he's
Like,
now my
what?
favorite guy.
Who's that hunk? Um,
Right.
yeah. Whenever you see Gladiator, you know he's a big deal. Like for somebody who hadn't seen him beforehand, you could tell he has an air of like
Yeah.
intimidation and like not royalty, but just very well put together.
Yeah. So it opens, Ronan is leading the Kree. Like I said, we have all of these people uh fighting. Deathbird comes in, Gladiator, all those that we mentioned before, which are like Starbolt, Flashfire, Smasher, Titan, War Star, Manta, all those, Vulcan. We get to Charles and Lalandra's relationship, and we figure out what Charles has kind of been doing, just kind of living it up there, I guess. Playing some kinky games, I guess, too, as we hear she's like, you can bark later. They
Yeah.
got like this really funny exchange in that regard. But they also, one thing I think that surprised me is Charles has had to deal with people hating him for a mutant. Now they're kind of hating him because he's from Earth, right? He's a Terran. And I thought it would be the other way around. Like, I thought they'd be like, yes, he's Terran, but he's a mutant. Like, he's one of the better ones. He's a
Yeah.
stronger one. They call him like one of like I forget how they phrase this, but like
Like
garbage.
lower, yeah,
Yeah,
like lower dredge or something like basically putting them above just or below standard humans. Like
yeah.
that was very surprising.
And then that's when he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna take you guys all to the classroom right now. Which I just thought it's like, yeah, you can, I guess hate him all you want, but man, this guy's too strong for all of you, and he's able to do amazing things. But they kind of give him an ultimatum at first, right?
Hmm.
It's the ultimatum of uh, pretty much like you either go home, or if you're gonna be here, and if your wife or wife to be, I guess, Lalandra is gonna keep on ruling, then you actually have to get your memories removed of Earth. So that way we know that you are with us 100%.
Hmm.
And Charles at first is willing to do this, kind of hesitantly, but when he brings him into that classroom, something he really says that I think I kind of was thinking of in the back of my head that I'm glad he spoke to. It's like, you're not really mixing the cultures at that point. You're just
Hmm.
assimilating,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yep.
they're all just becoming Shi'ar instead of balancing the cultures of the different empires that they've taken over,
What
and kind of
what does
mixed
that
with
what does
marriages.
that sound like?
Yeah.
a lot of real world parallels in this entire episode there.
Even with Storm stuff, Storm's talking about how Forge has this like military stuff underground,
Hmm.
and she's like, "Those are the people that wiped away your people. Why did you let them build us here?" So it is very similar that they're both kind of going through the
Yeah,
same thing there.
yeah. He says they said they were here to help, and obviously they weren't. They were there to control. Which, again, I'll just this whole episode was rife with those real world parallels, and just kind of showed that the same the same issues between mutants and humans that they have on Earth are rampant everywhere in the galaxy and in the entire multiverse. Even there was that line from Deathbird. What did she say? She called it like a Milky Way ghetto. She called
Yeah,
Earth
she said the Milky Way ghetto.
like holy crap. Like yeah, like that's something that you'd hear like somebody today say, and I'll keep it at that to avoid dividing the audience at any point. But just
It sounds like it'd
that's
be a pretty good rap lyric, though. I don't know.
mm,
Like if that was in like some sort of diss track, I feel like that'd be pretty
I'd be
good.
sick. Yeah, I'd be sick. Yeah.
Deathbird just goes on a diss track right here.
Or it's like a Snickers doing it. Yeah, Milky
Yes.
Way, you ghetto, yo. Probably the same company, but whatever.
I think they are. Yeah, they're both Mars. But yeah, so I guess let's stick with Charles right now. He has when he's teaching the class, he kind of gets overcome with a vision, and we see Gambit, and
Mhm,
we start seeing all of the class seats become filled with skeletons.
mhm,
I guess referencing mutants he's taught, right? And then you have Gambit, who's like a larger one that turns into a skeleton, and he realizes that something has actually happened, and he needs to go.
mhm.
He needs to
Kind
go
of like
back home.
reminded me of like the suit, the advanced like kind of Sentinel that we saw in the last episode. Gambit, like
Yeah,
the face and everything, looked very similar.
and I think this right here guarantees that Magneto's alive.
How so?
Eh, well, because I feel like his connection with Eric is so much stronger than anyone else. He would
Mm,
have he would have been seeing Eric instead.
big time. No, you're absolutely. I didn't even think of that, but you're very much right about that. He would have seen Magneto first. Yeah, that whole thing, and they really in this episode as a whole, and this show as a whole. I think we've said it a few times on here. They've really dived into the horror aspects of things. We
Hmm.
saw it a few times in this episode with the stuff with Storm, which we'll get to in a little bit. And even this whole scene was like chilling. Like I love the way that it's sort of had that horror pulse all the way throughout, and it very much fits if Mr. Sinister is indeed the one that's like behind all of this. That the whole season would kind of have that like creepy, spooky vibe to it.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt now that it was Mister Sinister, especially
Yeah.
at the end when he kind of takes the Cassandra Nova spot from E is for Extinction when
Yep.
he's like, "I gave you my DNA so you could activate the Sentinels or whatever," and it seems like Trask was actually a little disturbed by what had happened. Maybe not so much because of what happened, but because he knows he's gonna be blamed for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And he's probably going away for a long time. He started a war with a UN nation. Like that's there's no coming back from that if
Dunzo.
you're Bolivar Trask.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Charles is pretty much like, I have to go back, and Lalandra's upset. She does think Deathbird is going to try to take over her role at one point here. But uh, so where does this leave you for this? Is Charles appearing next week, or is this going to kind of continue with parallel stuff going on where maybe we see him? I would think at the start of the 3 arc finale is kind of
That
my guess.
that was exactly what I was going to say. I think next week will be heavy on the Rogue, heavy on Scott and Jean as they a kind of recover from what we saw in Remember It, while also we saw that the preview says they go to see Trask, and they basically find out what we're assuming now will be that Sinister is behind all of it.
Yeah.
So it'll be heavy on them. It'll probably shine a spotlight big time on Rogue's grief and all that stuff. And really, I expect it to be a much slower episode, kind of like what I thought this one was going to be, but it ended up being pretty action packed and had a lot to it. I think this one will be much more character centric and focusing on the grief and the loss aspect. And at the end, they'll do that stuff and get into kind of setting up the groundwork for what promises to be a really, really big 3 episode finale.
I saw somebody call this episode filler, by the way.
This episode?
Yeah.
How?
They're like, get you need to stretch out this season, but I'm like, oh my god.
I don't. One of like by definition, there is nothing in this episode that constitutes it being filler.
They were considering the Charles stuff filler, but I'm like, you need to know where he is and what's coming. Like that was what?
It's like one of the major things we've been wondering about all season. Where's Charles? What are you
randomly without it? It's like, where is this? Where is this coming from?
You wanted to show up one day, honey? I'm home. Like
yeah.
Like, oh Lord, if they all, no, I'm not even gonna give him that. I was gonna say if he had said like, if the whole episode was just this and there were some parts that dragged, I'd be like, all right, some parts of it were filler. But either way, no, not at all filler. I do expect. You know what? No, I don't. I was gonna say I expect next week to be a little fillery, but really I don't, because whether we're seeing Rogue's grief or we're kind of slowly starting to peel back this mystery on the X-Men.
It'd be all development, right?
Yes.
Like it's all character development or plot development. I mean, like I would say the only filler you could actually say would be the Motendo.
Yeah.
Half. That's it. Like that half of an episode.
Mm-hmm. And even that was in service of Jubilee kind of coming into her own. But if you had to point to
with
something,
Roberto,
yes, and Roberto, yes. But if you had to point to something this season that was the most filler-y, that was definitely it. And this episode was nowhere close in terms of how much was filler and how much wasn't. So that's bonkers to me.
So we know the next episode is called Bright Eyes, and you said that before, something Rogue, right?
Yes.
Is that what you would? Okay.
It's something. Now, it's Rogue's kind of like she calls. I think it was Cable in the original series. Actually, she calls him Bright Eyes and like
that's like okay. That was going to be my thing. I think we're going to get some Cable in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
They've liked these double meanings. We got that with Remember It, where we thought it was going to be about Jean remembering stuff, but it was Remy saying remember it, which is also a line he said when he introduced himself, like, forever ago. So I mean, it is like something that was tied to him. But one thing, like you said, I don't think it's just taking it out from that line of her saying Bright Eyes, but when Madeline saw Cable again last week, she mentioned about his eyes, and that's how she recognized it was him. And she mentioned his eyes when he was born, about how he has Scott's eyes. Like, I do think that the theme of eyes with Cable have been very, very telegraphed, that I'm expecting to see him next week.
Yeah, 100%. If for no other reason, the necessity of like, we've got to see more from Cable before we get into this epic 3-part like finale. We got to know more of his end, what he's seen, like why he was. Oh, we know why he was trying to stop Genosha, because there was about to be a bunch of people killed. But like what led him there and all that stuff. So I think it'll be very much half will be Rogue, Rogue and kind of all that stuff. And I think we'll get a lot of from the point that he travels with Bishop as a baby into that up until we see him at Genosha. We'll probably get that whole kind of time frame covered as the B slot of next week's episode.
All right. Anything else about Charles, maybe, before we move on to Storm and Forge?
No, just it was, again, just to reemphasize, it was so awesome, the classroom thing. It just felt very like classic Charles, the apple in Deathbird's mouth, and just seeing Gladiator's big ass and the tiny little school desk and everything, just like classic, like fun, like X-Men stuff. So it was great. But I think that's probably it. We can move on to some Life Death here.
Yeah, I want to get Chris, if you're listening to this, I want you to give us a little bit more on if you found it stereotypical with the apple and the
Hmm.
teacher, because I know you're going into teaching, so you gotta let us know
True.
if that if that's like, oh, of course, it's like cops with donuts.
Appropriating
They're like,
teaching
of
culture.
course. What
Yeah.
is this?
Facts.
All right, yeah, let's go to Storm and Forge. Storm is battling the adversary in this. We got some nice little things that's Forge with the magic. Everybody's been kind of highlighting looks very Doctor Strange magic like, and I think that's just now like that's their consistency. That's what they want magic to look like. So I think that's cool.
Well, yeah,
Um,
yes and no though, because like that, it seems like a very specific like sect of like sorcerer magic, like from the ancient one, because we've seen Wanda's chaos magic look
yeah,
different.
herds are different. Yeah,
Agatha's looks different. So we've seen a few different kinds of magic in the MCU, but the orange, like the circle and square kind of designs and all that stuff, felt very Doctor Strange, as did the book that he had in his hand that he was sort of casting all this from. Obviously, we know we've seen Doctor Strange for a very brief glimpse in the original series, so it kind of stands to believe maybe they'll do something with that in season two, like some kind of Sorcerer Supreme connection with Forge's mother. Maybe kind of add that to his backstory to make him a little more tied into the universe, the Marvel universe around him, so to speak.
yeah, that'd be interesting. Look, you know what I would tell you is I would like just a whole Marvel animated universe
Yeah,
at this point.
yeah.
Look, let's talk about it too while I'm thinking about it. They released a new trailer for this, so
Mhm.
if you're don't want to know what's going to happen, I mean, there's a pretty big cameo coming up of a guy who also appeared in season 5 of X-Men the animated series. I gave you enough time to turn it off if you didn't want to hear, but it's Captain America and his
Oh
shield
yeah,
makes an appearance. I would
Captain
assume this is
America.
I would assume it's the finale as well. Like I feel like he would be. Look, there was just an attack on a UN nation. I'm assuming he has something to think about or talk about with this. I mean, the way Cap uh, Cap is before we saw him in a flashback in season 5 when he was with Logan.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would assume now this is like normal everyday Cap, present day Cap, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. It would stand to believe that you'd think we would get basically every superhero on Earth like this. This would be pretty big on their radar, which has happened in Genosha. So the only one we got teased for certain is Captain America, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some others in there too. I'm still holding out hope. I don't think it's likely, but that we get that Spider-Man cameo, and then it leads to an
Mhm.
announcement for that show. With freshman year still kind of coming down the pipe, which just feels like the most like obstructive, like get out of the way project ever now, because everybody just wants the reboot of the old Spider-Man animated series. But yeah, it seems like they're really setting up for a grand scale in these last three, in terms of the story and in terms of the players involved.
Yeah, I like you said, that's Spider-Man crossed over with the X-Men in his series. He's also crossed over with Cap. I believe Punisher appeared in that series, and uh, Iron Man F4. Some of them may have
No,
appeared too.
Iron Man wasn't in it. No.
He wasn't it. I know he had an animated series around that time, but
I
yeah.
think
So I
I
mean,
think Thor was in a brief. It was that same thing, when Jean becomes like the Phoenix, and they show like Doctor Strange for a quick like cutaway, and Spider Man, and I think Thor was in that.
okay, yeah. Well, I meant like Iron Man. He didn't appear in Spider-Man at all?
Oh, in Spider Man, excuse me.
Because a lot more of them appeared in Spider-Man than they did here. Like Blade appeared in there, and like
Yeah, okay, that I'm not sure.
Punisher.
My
I gotta do
apologies.
some quick.
I thought you were referring to X-Men there. Um, but yeah, just really quick, kind of going back into the life death stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the first episode that I will say I had some issue with the pacing, but not with the pacing itself. I thought that the actual splits in terms of one story gets gets a little bit more time than the other. I like that kind of formula. I did think, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I could be wrong about this. It felt like the Charles and space stuff got a lot more time than the life death stuff. What do you think about that? You think I'm on base, off base? Because I've only watched it once, so maybe I could go back and rewatch it and be like, oh, maybe the splits aren't as bad as I thought. But it
No, I
felt.
do think it was more Charles, but I would say the Charles stuff was more interesting to me
Mhm.
because we hadn't seen him in years.
Yeah.
So for
Well,
me, I
that.
was like catching up with a guy that I haven't seen in like 30 years. Um, but I would assume that's because they took life, death, and had split it already,
For sure.
right? Like so, um, and
But that
really when you
it's weird too, because well, not to cut you off, but that
Mhm.
also like I kind of had those similar vibes coming out of that episode where it felt like okay, maybe like cut down the Jubilee stuff a little bit and give us more of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I did say in our group chat today that I was glad that we didn't get the whole episode of Life Death just being Life Death this week because I thought it would slow things down way too much from last week. And I thought that it would give some of that filler stuff that we talked about before. I didn't think this needed a whole episode, but I thought that Life Death could have used a little more time in this one. The whole ending, as cool as it was, and we got some awesome visuals. We got that piano song that just sends trying to cut down on the swears, so I'm caught myself there, but it just sent a chill down my spine, and it does every single time we hear it for Storm. So much of what they did with that, and again, the horror aspects that I'm a big fan of. So much of that was cool, but it felt a little rushed at the end, where it's just like, oh, okay, it was actually just your fears holding you back this whole time. Like, just felt very kind of classic, tropey, a little too
So
much. And I know that was how it went in the comics, but even still,
what I assume, right, is that the gun worked and took her powers,
yeah.
and the machine worked to restore her powers, but she had a mental block, right? Is that what we're
Mhm.
led to believe then? That
Yes,
his machine did
basically.
work. Okay.
Yeah, basically. That's how I took it. It wasn't really explained, but I would
Yeah.
mad or the gun was temporary. Like I think they're just leaving it vague on purpose because it just doesn't serve them. Like there's no purpose in telling, one way or the other. It's like something maybe they can come back to down the road, and just like kind of leave it open for now.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because I mentioned last week I'm not familiar with the adversary that much.
Hmm.
This thing is so ugly to me. I was happy this thing didn't take that long of the episode. I was thankful.
Not a fan of
Um,
owls.
I do like owls, but not this owl. This owl is crazy. So that was like my biggest thing is I like Storm. I like following Storm, but you're right. It is a little rushed. We saw last time. Ford's just like, I love you. It's like, dude, I know you for 5 hours. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
I love you.
She says she loves him in this, right? That or like love of my life or something in this.
Something I can. I will admit, it did slip me if she did say it. But
And I was
that
kind of
sounds
like, wow, all right, so she reciprocates. You know, I'm like, but it's been again like not that long.
It's like, come on, just bring me to Charley, man. I want to
I
see the
assume it
storm come up.
has been longer at this point, right? Like, uh, what I would think is we know Madeline had left in enough time to uh when Madeline left, she had enough time to become like part of the Genosha stuff, right?
Hmm.
And was checking in on like she was her and Scott were checking in on each other for months. So it has been like and she left before they even figured out
Yeah,
Madeline was a clone. So
it's been
it's
probably
been
at least a
enough
couple months
time.
at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably been enough time that that they have actually fallen in love or whatever. But for us it was pretty quick. And that along with with just adversary as a whole, I was like not really digging that. The best thing about this I thought is her and Forge just kind of like their relationship just talking their different ideals that they have and all that kind of stuff. And then once she got her powers back, and that whole montage of you know um
Flying with the
she
animals and just all that.
yeah, and like how adversary is kind of apparently in the original series she mentioned she has claustrophobia, which is I don't remember that, but
Me
that
either. Yeah, that I did not remember
she
that.
has it with the small cave, and he mentions it. I know you don't like small tight spaces. She goes in there, it becomes like a coffin, right? I
Hmm.
mean, like it was all very like visually cool, and then she just breaks free from that, and you see the wind start whipping around, and the lightning come back, and
Hmm.
that was great. But I would tell you, every time they went back to Charles, I was like, all right, lean a
Yeah.
little forward in my chair, because I'm like, I really wanted to see what he was going to do. I thought maybe he would. I really had no idea where they were going
Same.
with Charles. I didn't know if they were going to wipe his memory or not. Part of me is like, there's no way they're going to do that, right? But I would think Jean could just restore it if she wanted to. So I was like,
Yeah.
maybe they will. And he gets back down there at some point, and Jean's like, "You don't remember us? Oh, I'll make you remember us." you
Hmm.
know,
Remember
after
it.
after she finally remembers everything, she can sort that out. But
And then Gambit returns from the dead and says, "Y'all remember it." Bad joke, my
so
bad.
when it comes to Storm's part, I did find it amazing that this episode was called Life Death Part 2, honestly, because it did feel more like a Charles episode than
Mhm.
than a Storm episode. I think they tried to balance them well enough, but there was just more stuff to go through with Charles because we hadn't seen him in forever.
Mhm.
While Storm without powers, it's like, all right, how many times are you gonna have this conversation with Forge, and then how many
Mhm.
times are you gonna have the adversary just be like chirping in her ear before you're like, we kind of got to give her powers back.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I could definitely see that side of things. I think I would have liked to see her struggle with like maybe she tries to go on the hole one time and like it's just too much, and adversary like does something and it's just too much and she can't do it. It just felt very like, oh, we're here now. Oh, there's your biggest fear. It's a hole. Go into it, and she goes into it, and it felt very kind of play by numbers. And I think if they had a little more time with it, they could have done a little more. Uh, but to your point, there was just so much going on with Charles in this episode. I think the fact that we kind of knew where things were heading with Storm, that she was going to get her powers back, definitely played into to Charles's side of things being a little more interesting in this episode because of that unpredictability that you mentioned and not really knowing where they were going to go with things. Um, but all in all, I think I stick by that. I would have liked to see a little more on that side, on the life death side.
All right, you heard it there. He wants Life Death Part 3.
Part
Give it
three,
to
give it to me, baby. Take her powers again and give us a whole season. X-Men Life Death.
Oh man, I looked it up, by the way. Yes, in the Spider-Man series, Fantastic Four shows up, Iron Man shows up, War Machine shows up, Punisher shows up,
Hmm.
Morbius, Madam Web, Doctor Strange, uh,
I gotta go.
Daredevil,
Gotta go
the
back and watch
X-Men,
that one, man. Oof.
Blade. I mean, like, so many of these
The
characters
who's who, yeah. But they don't,
appeared.
dude.
So
So, what do you think is going on with the event? Oh, do you think the Avengers even exist in this world? First of
no,
all, no. So it's just individual superheroes kind of off doing their own thing because it feels crazy that there wouldn't be some sort of like centralized, not to sound like Thunderbolt Ross here, but some kind of like centralized system that like keeps all of these heroes like connected and tied to each other, not in the form of a way where they can't do anything unless the government says so, like Civil War, but just in a way kind of like in the way that Nick Fury did, because we know Nick Fury's in this universe. It just
yes.
it just feels kind of weird that we wouldn't see a bunch of superheroes kind of coming to their aid in this moment, not just Cap, who we do know is coming.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as what we were saying after Avengers in the MCU. When you get to Iron Man 3, you're like, "Oh my god, they're blowing up Tony Stark's house. Why isn't Hulk helping out?" It's like, well, he's got his own stuff. Like what I would assume is, while that's a big thing, what are they gonna do? I mean, like, to what they look like, it can Spider-Man really help that much with a Sentinel?
Yeah,
I don't know, right? Like, and it was
yeah.
a huge Sentinel that blew up all of Genosha. Like,
What was that?
I,
What was the show? With Cap? Do you remember Captain Hindsight, where he just shows up after a massive, horrible event and just says everything that they should have done? That would literally, essentially, be what they did.
right. Especially like we said, this is 97. There is no like smartphones at this time. So by the
Yeah,
time Peter hears of this, right, or Tony Stark hears of it,
it
it's
was
over.
South Park, by the way. Sorry.
Okay. So you have like, by the time they hear of it, it's already over.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's cool that they're bringing Cap back, at least because Cap was in the original show. I wouldn't want them to ever get too far down to like, oh, the Avengers are appearing in this show. What I would like them to do instead is create their own Avengers series that maybe would take place in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I would like to have.
And
You know,
they could even retcon, like, if they wanted to bring back Earth's Mightiest Heroes and set it in this universe. I don't know off the top of my head if there's like anything that would like prevent that. You know what I mean? To where
right.
it would mess up anything that they've told so far.
But I really like the animation style of X-Men 97, and just seeing this, you know, the 90s animated cartoons were my favorite because I felt like they were just like they had the best animation. I know now they kind of go more stylized on all this stuff,
Yeah.
but I like that these characters look like they're ripped right out of the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Spider-Man in '94 had the same sort of look. It didn't look like uh, what is it? Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon looks like, where they're a little bit more stylized. It
Yeah.
looked straight off the page, and that's what I would
As
love
much
to
as
see
we
from an
love them, like the
Avengers.
Spider-Verse movies, like that animation, it's very distinct and very
Yes,
like
yeah,
doesn't feel as much comic book as it feels like you're watching just this grand, like, epic animated thing. It's just
right.
different. Doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It's just the flavor and how it fits, whatever IP they're with. Like that
Right.
animation style fits Spider-Man perfectly. This style fits X-Men perfectly.
Right. And I just look at X-Men the animated series and I'm like, "Oh, that looks just like Batman the animated series. It looks like Spider-Man the animated series. It looks like Gargoyles, the old Disney
There's a deep
show
cut
there
for
too."
you. Some
Oh,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles while we're
I
at
was
it.
a huge Gargoyles fan growing up.
Nice.
Um
What about
so
Thundercats?
yeah, Thundercats. I was the what was the biker mice one? Do you know who they were?
No.
It was like I'll have to look it up, but they were like these mice on motorbikes, like on motorcycles, and they were
Sold.
bikers.
Sold.
I
Whatever
had
it is, I'm
toys of
watching.
them. And I'm like, what are these things? They're cool. They had a show.
Oh, wait.
Um,
Wait. Is it not Mighty Mouse? No, that's something different, right?
yeah, that's something different.
That's something different. Okay.
He's a superhero. Let me look up mice biker
You're going to get some really cool pictures, I can tell you that. Either way.
biker mice from Mars,
Okay, yeah.
1993.
Nope, that one missed me.
Dude, you gotta. I'm gonna share this. You gotta see these photos of the biker mice from Mars.
Put them up on the screen, too, and post, just so everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yes, that way people are not thinking I'm just absolutely crazy with what's going on here.
Come for the
Uh,
X-Men talk, stay for
yeah.
the mice on bikes.
Oh my god. You know what though? I'll tell you. Uh, Yahoo Images for some reason is the default on my browser, and it's so much worse than
Oh,
Google. Hold on.
dude, immediately change it to Google. What are you doing?
I do. I change it every time, but every time it resets, it it makes it that again. I don't understand why. Okay, here we go. I'm going to. Okay, I'm gonna share this, and then I'll have to like save it and actually put it on the thing here. It's worth
Okay.
it for everybody listening here. Oh yeah, and if you're listening, I guess just look up Biker
Yeah.
Mice from
Oh
Mars.
God. Yeah. We spent all this time talking about how great it was that we just had our most views on or listens on Spotify, and now we're spending 20 minutes talking about
There you
something we're not
go.
even going to be able to see. Oh, okay. There we go.
Let
Oh,
me see if I can get the full.
that actually
Uh,
does look familiar. Like the character designs look
yeah,
familiar. I
look
know
at
I
them.
never
They're
watched
like
it, but
they got like sunglasses, a eye patch.
hey, you
It
never know.
went
Secret Wars could get crazy, man. You never
it
know.
went hard. All right. Um, but yeah, no. Those were toys I had, and I don't even know that show lasted 3 seasons. No, it says 1 season, 28 episodes.
Mhm.
There you go. Oh no, this was a continuation of the original. What? They already did a continuation of this show
Oh my god.
in 2006. All right, that's weird.
We're gonna have to make the title of this episode "Biker Mice from Mars Review."
We're now a Biker Mice from Mars podcast. Okay, no.
Yeah.
Anything else about this episode of X-Men?
Not really. Again, we just now we saw how it ended with Mr. Sinister chasing Bolivar Trask through the streets with the green kind of spooky ambiance. Love that. And I'm just really excited to see where they go with it, man. Maybe for all we know, maybe Sinister is just kind of a red herring and he's answering to somebody. You know, there's a lot of different ways they could still go, even though it seems like we have a pretty concrete idea of who's behind all of this at the moment. So, really fun episode. Not really too much to gripe about, and buckle up because we're about to really get heavy here. After again, what I said, I expect to be not the most action packed, just kind of like this one, honestly. Very kind of story focused and setting things up for the big shebang in the last three.
I'm really excited. Nightcrawler's a part of the team. He's part of the intro now. He wasn't really part of the team in the original show. Yeah, it was in like a couple episodes. So I'm very excited for that. How about the theory that Gambit comes back as one of the Apocalypse Horsemen?
Ooh, I didn't see that. Who said that?
There was people saying that he's going to be Death out of the Apocalypse Horsemen, which
That would be
because he is dead,
awesome,
that would be
dude.
cool.
That would be so cool. I don't know if they have the guts to do it, but that would be awesome.
But yeah, so that's a theory out there. But other than that, I'm just really excited. Nightcrawler's in the team. I want to see him next week more. I want to see him. What I would think is season 2 is going to have a little bit of a different roster. Like if Gambit's actually dead, here's my bet too. Charles is in the opening theme song next week.
Oh yeah.
In his thing, and it says like Charles Xavier, Professor X again. You know, with the title card part of him.
I don't know if we get the title card yet. I think we'll probably get more of him in those kind of like quick cut, like how each week they throw in a scene that will pertain to that episode. I could see something like that, but I don't know if I see him back in the title card just yet.
See, I'll say yes, just because like we didn't even see Nightcrawler in this episode, and he
Oh yeah,
appeared in
that's
the
true.
opening. So I'm
That's
like,
true.
I was thinking, maybe they'll throw that. If not, maybe you're right, and it's part of the
That
final
is a good
3.
call, though. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. We didn't see Nightcrawler at all this week. Maybe just in the keeping with the spirit of changing it every week and adding something to it, they'll throw him in there. So yeah, that's a good call.
Well, we'll see. That's my bet right now. So we'll see if that actually happens or not. But I would also expect to see Storm appear in
Yeah,
the opening credits as well.
I think we'll see her probably. Well, not only in the opening credits, but I think we see her return to the team within the first few minutes of the episode. Like they're probably all back at the institute, and she's gonna roll up pretty quick, I'd imagine.
Yeah, she just flies over there. She's like, "Wait a minute, I gotta go see my friends."
What is going on?
She's carrying Forge as she's flying.
Yeah, he's
just like, all right, yeah.
This is the most demasculating thing that's ever happened. He's like kicking his feet.
He's like, let me get that gun again so I can take your powers away.
Yeah.
But no. So I'm expecting. Oh, maybe we get Forge as part of the team.
As part of the new. Oh yeah, in the opening credits. Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that.
because I would assume he wants to help, unless if it's like, dude, you're still recuperating from the poison, you got to stay here, type of thing.
He's gonna be like, I actually also built the technology that Sinister's using against you guys right now. I'm sorry, guy. I built every evil thing that's
Can
ever
you believe it? This is crazy.
existed. All these people came to me and asked me to build this stuff. They all swore they weren't going to do anything with it, and here we are.
They just kept threatening me, and I was like, look, I'll just do it. Get out of here. But yeah, so you can follow us at all of the social media in the notes below. Our Twitter is at TO Infinity Saga. Facebook is facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond. And you can also email us marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com. We would love to hear your thoughts and theories on where we go from here in X-Men 97. And I don't mean X-Men 98. And then you can also like and subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps more people find the show. Again, I just want to thank everyone for listening last week, and hopefully you're sticking with us as we get closer and closer to the finale. Next week, we will be having next week or the week after. I'm kind of busy next week, but next week or the week after, we will have the Ultimate Spider-Man issue 4 discussion, as that's dropping next week. So whenever I get a chance to read it and record with you and Chris, we will be having that episode posted. Over on Elseworlds, Chris and I are going to be talking early next week about the casting of Ma and Pa Kent in James Gunn's Superman. So keep an eye out for that, as that'll be coming. And any other big news that happens. I know people are like, the 18th. A full suit reveal on the 18th. So
I will also say, just really quick while you're in the middle there, I have never seen so many people so passionately react one way or the other to like 2 elderly folks being cast in a movie that probably are going to be in the movie for like 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. They're not going to be in it much, I don't think. The fact that they waited until mid-filming to cast them, I think tells you that they're not.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of scenes.
No.
Right?
No. But yeah, it's fun. I'm interested to see your guys' take on it, because there's been a lot of crazy ones out there.
And then over on the Pod Awakens, we've been dropping our chronological Clone Wars every Wednesday. Every Friday, I've been dropping the High Republic series, Road to the Acolyte, as I discuss with guests each and every week a book from High Republic Phase 1. So those are dropping every Friday. And yeah, I think that's everything. So thanks again for watching and listening along. We will catch you next time when we talk X-Men 97, Episode 7, Bright Eyes.